Imagine a time thousands of years ago when flying machines soared through the skies, not in science fiction, but in ancient Indian texts. They were called Vimanas, and their descriptions have fascinated historians, engineers, and conspiracy theorists alike. But what were they, really? Were they mythological chariots of the gods? Or could they have been real flying machines, powered by lost ancient technology? The Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Vedic scriptures describe airborne vehicles, some capable of traveling between cities, others said to move between planets. One text, the Vimanika Shastra, even gives technical details about how Vimanas were built and operated. And here's where it gets even stranger. Some believe Vimanas weren't just myth, but evidence of advanced aeronautics long before modern flight was invented. Theories suggest they were powered by mysterious energy sources, using mechanical designs far ahead of their time. But skeptics argue that no physical evidence of these flying machines exists. They claim the texts are symbolic, not technological. And studies of the Vimanika Shastra suggest its descriptions are scientifically impossible. So, what's the truth? Could ancient Indian civilization have possessed advanced flying technology? Or is this just another legend misinterpreted by modern minds? Let's dive into the ancient texts and unravel the mystery of the Vimana. The earliest references to Vimanas appear in some of India's most sacred texts, written thousands of years ago. These texts describe flying vehicles used by gods, kings, and warriors, traveling vast distances in the blink of an eye. But were these just poetic metaphors? Or do they hint at something more? One of the most famous references to a Vimana comes from the Ramayana, an ancient epic dating back over 2,000 years. It tells the story of Ravana, the demon king of Lanka, who possessed a flying chariot called the Pushpaka Vimana. This golden craft, described as self-propelled and capable of flying at great speeds, was said to have been created by the gods. After Ravana was defeated, the hero Rama used the Vimana to return to his kingdom, a journey that should have taken weeks by land, but was completed in mere hours. Was this just a mythological tale, or was the Pushpaka Vimana inspired by real technology? Some researchers believe it could be a distorted memory of a lost aerial technology, while skeptics argue it was simply symbolic of divine power. The Mahabharata, another ancient Indian epic, also contains breathtaking descriptions of flying machines. This time, Vimanas appear not just as vehicles for travel, but as weapons of war. The text describes great battles where celestial chariots flew through the sky, shooting beams of energy and dropping devastating weapons. Some descriptions sound eerily similar to modern aircraft and even advanced weaponry. Vimanas are said to have had multiple levels, suggesting complex engineering. Some could become invisible or change direction instantly, like modern fighter jets. They were equipped with powerful weapons, similar to missiles or laser-based weaponry. While mainstream scholars view these as mythical exaggerations, others suggest they may be ancient descriptions of real flying technology, either built by an advanced civilization or even inherited from extraterrestrial beings. Beyond the great epics, Vedic literature contains numerous references to flying machines. The Samarangana Sutradhara, a Sanskrit text on engineering from the 11th century, gives instructions on how Vimanas should be built and piloted. It describes Vimanas as metallic flying machines powered by mercury vortex engines, capable of vertical takeoff and landing, much like modern helicopters, resistant to enemy attacks with defensive mechanisms. If these descriptions are accurate, it raises a major question. Where did this knowledge come from? Some believe it hints at a lost ancient technology, one that may have been erased from history. Others say these descriptions were misinterpretations of celestial movements or religious metaphors. If Vimanas were real, how did they work? Could ancient civilizations have understood aerodynamics and propulsion long before modern flight? One of the most controversial texts on this subject is the Vimanika Shastra, a Sanskrit manuscript that claims to describe the science behind Vimanas. But does it hold real technological secrets? Or is it a product of later imagination? The Vimanika Shastra surfaced in the early 20th century, claiming to be based on ancient knowledge. It describes 4 different types of Vimanas, complete with detailed blueprints, propulsion methods, and flight mechanics. According to the text, these flying machines were powered by mercury vortex engines, which allegedly generated anti-gravitational lift, capable of stealth technology, making them invisible to enemies, designed with highly resistant metals, unknown to modern science. One passage even describes pilots needing to wear special protective clothing, similar to modern flight suits. But here's the problem. There's no historical evidence that this text existed before 1904. Some scholars believe it was written much later, possibly as a modern interpretation of ancient mythology rather than a true historical document. Could it be that the real knowledge of Vimanas was lost, and what remains today is only a distorted memory of something greater? While the Vimanika Shastra is fascinating, many scientists and historians argue that its descriptions are scientifically impossible. A 1974 study by the Indian Institute of Science examined the text and concluded that the designs would not be aerodynamically stable in real flight. The materials and fuels described are not scientifically viable. And no archaeological evidence of these flying machines has ever been found. Critics believe that Vimanas were purely mythological, symbolic of divine power rather than real technology. They argue that ancient civilizations often described celestial events and visions in fantastical terms, which modern readers misinterpret as references to machines. But despite these counter-arguments, questions remain. If these texts are entirely fictional, why do so many ancient cultures describe flying chariots, advanced weaponry, and lost sciences? Could the real technology behind Vimanas have been forgotten or even suppressed? For all the excitement surrounding Vimanas, there's one major problem. No physical evidence has ever been found. No ancient flying machines, no advanced propulsion systems, no remnants of high-tech metals. So, is this just mythology, or could there be more to the story? Let's examine the scientific perspective on Vimanas and what experts say about the possibility of ancient flight. In 1974, a group of researchers from the Indian Institute of Science, IISC, in Bangalore, conducted a detailed analysis of the Vimanika Shastra, the text that supposedly describes the mechanics of Vimanas. Their conclusions were damning. The aircraft designs in the text were completely impractical, with no understanding of real aerodynamics. The propulsion systems, especially the mercury vortex engines, were based on pseudoscience with no actual functionality. And the materials described in the text were not strong enough to withstand flight conditions. Their final verdict? The Vimanas described in the Vimanika Shastra could never have flown. The researchers concluded that the text was not based on real ancient knowledge, but rather a modern attempt to create an artificial mythology of advanced technology. So, does this mean Vimanas were never real? Not necessarily. Some believe the real knowledge of flying machines was lost, and the text we have today is a poor attempt to reconstruct it. Despite detailed descriptions of Vimanas in ancient texts, no physical remains of these flying machines have ever been discovered. Unlike other ancient technologies, such as irrigation systems, advanced metallurgy, and surgical tools, there are no artifacts that point to real aircraft from ancient India. Skeptics argue that if Vimanas were real flying machines, we should have found blueprints or detailed engineering records, like those left behind by Leonardo da Vinci, remnants of mechanical parts, such as gears, propulsion systems, or unusual alloys, and clear artistic depictions, rather than vague carvings that can be interpreted in different ways. Could it be that Vimanas were never physical machines, but rather symbolic representations of spiritual or celestial journeys? Many scholars believe the descriptions of flying chariots and energy weapons were metaphors for divine power, not real aircraft. But there's another possibility. What if the evidence has been lost, destroyed, or hidden? Some researchers argue that ancient knowledge, including advanced engineering, was deliberately erased or suppressed over time. If that's true, then we may never know whether Vimanas were real flying machines, or simply a legend that refuses to die. Whether real or myth, Vimanas have captured the imagination of millions. They have influenced science fiction, conspiracy theories, and even modern engineering concepts. But why does the idea of ancient flying machines continue to fascinate us? Let's look at how Vimanas have shaped popular culture and modern theories, including the controversial claim that they might be evidence of extraterrestrial contact. Over the years, Vimanas have inspired Hollywood films and TV shows featuring ancient civilizations with advanced technology, books and video games, where flying machines appear in mythological settings, and documentaries and conspiracy theories, questioning whether ancient humans had forgotten knowledge of aviation. Some engineers and aeronautical experts have even studied the descriptions of Vimanas, wondering if some aspects of their design could be applied to modern aircraft. The idea of mercury vortex engines, for example, is still being explored in experimental propulsion research. So even if Vimanas weren't real, their influence on modern science and technology is undeniable. One of the most controversial interpretations of Vimanas comes from the ancient astronaut theory, the idea that ancient gods were actually extraterrestrial visitors, and that their flying machines were misunderstood spacecraft. Proponents of this theory argue that the descriptions of flying chariots, energy weapons, and anti-gravity propulsion sound eerily similar to modern UFO reports. Ancient texts mention beings descending from the sky and teaching humanity advanced knowledge, similar to alien contact theories. And civilizations across the world, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Mesoamerica, also have stories of flying machines and sky gods. Of course, mainstream historians dismiss this theory, arguing that ancient myths were never meant to be taken literally. They believe the descriptions of Vimanas are metaphors for divine power, not evidence of aliens or advanced lost technology. So, what is the truth behind Vimanas? Were they real flying machines, proof of lost ancient technology, or simply mythological symbols misinterpreted by modern minds? The ancient texts tell incredible stories of aerial battles, powerful chariots, and advanced machines capable of soaring through the skies. The Vimanika Shastra even attempts to explain their engineering, though modern science rejects it as unfeasible. No physical evidence of Vimanas has ever been found, and mainstream historians believe they were nothing more than legends. But at the same time, the world is filled with mysteries from the past, lost knowledge, unexplained artifacts, and ancient civilizations that may have understood more than we realize. Could Vimanas be one of those forgotten technologies? Or are we simply looking for answers in the wrong places? Perhaps the truth is still waiting to be discovered. And maybe, just maybe, history is far more complex than we've ever imagined. But no matter what you believe, one thing is certain. The mystery of the Vimana isn't going away anytime soon.